How you doing? This video is about the Honda Civic Type R manual transmission gear grind issue, something I experienced firsthand in the review of that vehicle. And when it happened, I thought to myself, here we go again. But before we get any further, take a look at the clip. Now, after it kind of settled in, it brought up a lot of bad memories for me. And I know I'm not the only one that had a problem with this. Now more owners are reporting it, and a lot of the owners are worried about this issue. So instead of making some clickbait, inflammatory just video about this, I want to talk about the things that I've gone through in the past with Honda and some of the things you can and can't do to help you out. And if you're just along for the ride here and you want to learn about it, strap yourself in. Now let's get right into it. If you're an owner that has had a gear grind, there's a couple criteria that you need to make sure that you meet before you take it into the dealership. First and foremost, this car does not have manual transmission fluid temperature gauges, oil temperature gauges, or oil pressure gauges. You're on your own. It's like they don't want you to learn about your car, but that's the way it is with a lot of modern vehicles. All you have is a coolant temperature gauge. And when that coolant temperature is in that middle mark, that does not mean your car and your fluids are up to temperature. You may or may not know that. The thing is, it takes quite a bit longer for the oil and the transmission fluid to get up to operating temperature. Just because the coolant's settled in doesn't mean the other fluids are. So when you get out on the road, you really want to give yourself a good 15 minutes of driving to make sure the oil's up to temp and your manual transmission fluid's up to temperature before you really judge a gearbox feel, especially, namely in a Honda, it seems. So get out there, get the car up to temperature. If it's really, really cold out in freezing temperatures, it might even take a little bit longer of normal driving. You got to remember, just putting around doesn't really get those fluids up to temperature as quickly as if you're giving it a little bit more moderate acceleration, more load. So that's something to note. If you're up to temperature completely, you've driven it around enough, then you can really check to see if the transmission's grinding. The next thing you want to do is absolutely 100% sure that your foot is to the floor on that clutch before you shift. No quick shifting, no taps. I don't care what people say, well, you don't have to push it all the way to the floor. It should engage the clutch or disengage the clutch at 3/4. Rule it out, push it to the floor, and if you're still up to temperature and you're getting transmission grinds, then you can go to the dealership and start to open up a case. Now, the big deal, scheduling an appointment with your dealership to have the vehicle looked at. And I know the amount of phobia this is going to create because you know you're going to have to drop it off. You're going to have to explain to them what I just told you, what exactly happens, how it happens, and the steps that you took to get it to that place. And I know already you're going to say they're going to keep it for 2 days, beat the shit out of your car, which they probably are, and they're going to tell you they could not replicate the issue because it's so random. And in all fairness, a lot of the techs, they don't have the time. The dealerships get their money based on volume, so they're not going to spend all day trying to figure out your transmission issue. But what's more important here is that you open up that case, you get it documented, because if you don't, this doesn't go up the chain. It doesn't go up the regional chain. It doesn't get in the internal Honda CMS systems to create tickets for engineering requests to take a look at these problems. So as much as it's going to be a hassle and they're going to tell you you're the problem, you got to do it. So the last thing you want to do, you've taken it to the dealer. You might even take it to them multiple times to keep documenting it. You might have called customer service multiple times. Great. What can you do next? Well, if you have a camera, most people have phones with a camera on, safely mount it. See if you can get it recorded. Now, don't just go out and try to beat the shit out of your car. Don't look like an idiot going in, street racer, whatever the hell you have to do. See if you can get it recorded, because if you can, use it to your advantage. Put it on social media, YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want. And don't blow it up like clickbait, my car is shit. Don't do that. Just say, hey, my car's gear grinding. It's a brand new Civic Type R. This is really disappointing. Sad face. Done. Because the worst thing for Honda is PR problems. And for any major manufacturer, they don't want PR problems. They don't like it. The people in PR hate negativity. So if you bring that up, chances are that will also help to get these issues escalated internally. And they might even contact you with the modern age of social media. So that's the last thing you can do. Now that you have some tips of what to do while the vehicle is under warranty, you also might want to know that this will work the same way for most major automotive manufacturers. Their internal structures are very similar across the board. So if you have another car with similar issues, try that out. But one thing I want to tell you specifically with the Honda stuff, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you cry, scream, say it's totally unfair. Honda will never say there's a problem. You don't expect for 1 minute you will get a straight answer. You'll be even told that they know about it, they've heard about it. You will get dead silence until it is completely escalated to the point of being out of control. And you might ask yourself, well, what do I know? Well, what's this guy talking about? Well, let me give you some of the background on this. So here's the deal. Back in the early 2000s, I owned a bunch of automotive websites that I jettisoned and I went in a different career path. So I was still into cars, but around 2006, well actually exactly in 2006, I bought a brand new Honda Accord V6 with a 6-speed manual. Right out of the gate, within 100 miles, son of a bitch wouldn't go into third gear or would pop out or grind, usually in cold or low RPMs. Immediately brought it to the local Honda dealership, which had a really good reputation, Motorworks in Barrington. Brought this car in 3 separate times. First time, can't replicate the problem. Typical. Second, went out with the shop foreman. He told me, I don't know how to drive manual transmission. You have to push the clutch down before you shift. That was real helpful. Third time, brought it back. They told me this is normal for this car. It's totally normal within the normal parameters of the transmission behavior. At that point, I took it to another dealership where they called Techline, which is the regional support for dealerships that are trying to find out issues. Techline said, we don't know anything about it. And that's in 2006. So after this, I thought about, well, should I lemon the car? Should I seek, legal counsel, which I did. And the lawyer said, is anybody else having these problems? Can you get them together? So I spent a lot of time connecting with 60 different owners of the Acura TL, Acura CL, Acura RSX-S, Honda Civic Si, the 8th Gen, which just came out, and of course the Accord V6 owners. I got 60 people to send me used oil samples from their manual transmission fluid. I coordinated with a lab who tested all of them, and almost all of them came back with synchronizer wear material in them. And the lawyer at that time suggested that was enough ammo to kind of push Honda farther, which I did. I moved it up the chain, contacted customer support, said I have this information. Is it your trans fluid? Is it the trans? They will not talk to you. Eventually, it got pushed up to the chain, and I talked to Sage Marie in about 2007, and he's now kind of up there in the PR chain. Basically said he would look into it. Well, I don't know anything about it, of course. He probably wouldn't from the technical side, but he said he'd look into it, get back to me, but it doesn't seem like it's an issue. Never heard back from him. And that's what I'm impressing upon you is you're not going to get a straight answer. You're not going to get an admission of fault. You're not going to get an admission of guilt, because a car like these, especially when you have different suppliers, different OEMs that make the transmission parts, or they're in different locations, like if the car's made in the UK, the trans is from Japan, the motor's from the US, there's a lot of moving parts, and nobody really wants to own that. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So the remedy at that time is we started dicking around with different transmission fluids. I ran GM Synchromesh, which was supposedly made by Pennzoil, but was a different formulation than the Pennzoil Synchromesh. The GM Synchromesh totally eliminated the problem for 15,000 miles, and then I had to change the trans fluid. I mean, it was like night and day, and that just shows you how good different transmission fluids can be. Other people bled their slave cylinder, swapped out slave cylinders, took out clutch delay valves, replaced clutch master cylinders. It ran through the gamut of trying to kind of reverse engineer the problem. Right around that time, Honda released a reformulated manual transmission fluid that seemed to help a lot of cars, namely the S2000 with its gear grind issues, but it didn't eliminate the third gear problem that we had. In fact, it made it worse in most cases. I stuck with GM Synchromesh, and at that time, I went back to the legal side. I said, what are our options? Right around that time, San Diego, or Fox San Diego, Channel 6, did a news piece, because we didn't have social media at the time to propagate this stuff. So traditional media picked it up because there was a protest in front of a dealership in San Diego where they asked me to use my video clips of the car popping out of gear, which people didn't, there were no video cell phones at the time. So I was still doing video then. They used that in my articles about the car, and it raised even more awareness.
It might be easy to say this is just a problem with one car, but it isn't. Take a look at what we found online.
Article after article detailing the same problem with third gear in the Civic.
Equipped with the 6-speed manual transmission.
One website even has video of testing showing how it pops out of gear. And over 900 people have signed an online petition begging Honda to fix the problem.
We were unable to duplicate anything. No popping noise, no third gear popping out.
We then called Honda. They told us,
we are aware of some customer concerns, and we're currently investigating the root cause of the issue and potential solutions. So ultimately, customer satisfaction is one of the pillars of our business strategy, so you can bet that we're doing whatever we can.
Meanwhile,
right after that, shortly after that, I got somebody internally from Honda to leak me the TSBs for the Acuras and the Hondas that was coming out in the near future. So I didn't pursue the legal aspect because I knew it was coming. Shortly after I published this article, the TSBs came out, and the worst part I think was they were TSBs. And the problem existed all the way back from 2002 with the first RSX-S issue. The TSB didn't come out until 2008. And it seemed to me very strategic the way they did it, because most of those cars were out of warranty at that point. And I think they were trying to minimize the damage and cost of this. These were kind of low volume cars anyway. And it was just a kick in the nuts after all this work, not to get any answer after all that time and have to go through all this effort. Yes, the TSB fixed the problem. The third gear set had to be replaced in all these cars. That was the true fix. The synchronizers had to be swapped out. It was a mechanical problem. But again, it's the stress and the annoyance of having to deal with big business that is not out for the consumer's best interest. They're selling a product and they really don't want to tell you what's going on. They don't have to. So going forward, if you're having a problem, you have to set your mind, have zero expectation of getting an answer, but you have to do it the right way. And with social media and some of this stuff I've explained, it's going to help you big time trying to alleviate some of these issues, if it even is an issue. And I'm just saying, don't know if it is, but if it gets to that point, this is some helpful information for you. And take that for what it's worth. I'll talk to you later.